Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney, retired, and somebody who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. So if you're interested in an interesting discussion today, stay tuned. So imagine, if you will, that you are having a bit of a financial crunch. You have a car that broke down, the engine repairs are going to be $400. You have $200 of that $400, and you need a short-term loan just to get you past to the next payday. And because you're young, you don't have sufficient credit. So the bank says, nope, sorry, can't do that. And the credit union says, nope, sorry, can't do that. So who are you left with? Well, one of the places that you can go in that situation is to a payday loan company. But you absolutely, positively should not do this. Payday loans are essentially the current version of loan sharking. It's legal loan sharking. And the spin on it that comes from the industry is, well, you know, for people who don't have credit, this is the only way that they can get a loan. It's the only way that they can keep their head above water sometimes. We're providing a very valuable service. Yes, but you're charging interest rates between 75 and 150% on those payday loans. Now, I have a really serious problem with them because my little sister, when she was alive, got into payday loans. And what happened with her is she would go in and she would ask for a payday loan, and they'd say, how much do you need? And she'd say $100. So they'd write her a payday loan for $100, and she would write them a check for $150. Because the $50 represented the fees and the expenses of the loan that were collected at the back end. So she would walk away with $100 in her pocket and having written a check for $150 that would be due in 2 weeks. So she would be paying $150 for $100. That is not a good deal. Now, courtesy of responsiblelending.org, let's look at some of the horror stories that have come out as a result of these payday loans. At times it seems like the way out, but this is not a quick fix. It's like a ton of bricks. Sandra Harris, once a Head Start student, now a well-known and respected member of her community, worked diligently to keep up with her bills. In a tough time, she turned to payday lending. After several rollovers, Sandra's first loan was due in full. She couldn't pay it off, so she took a loan from a second lender, frantically trying to manage her bills. Sandra eventually found herself with 6 simultaneous payday loans. She was paying over $600 a month in fees, none of which applied to her debt. Sandra was evicted and her car was repossessed. Well, except for the Sandra was evicted and her car was repossessed, that is my little sister's story. That's exactly what happened to her. Then you look at what happened to Lisa Engelikens. A single mother making less than $8 an hour paid $1,254 in fees to renew a payday loan 35 times. Lisa thought she was getting new money each time, when in fact, she was simply borrowing back the $300 she had just repaid. She paid renewal fees every 2 weeks for 17 months to float a $300 loan without paying down the loan. As you can see, payday loans are predatory loans, and they should be avoided at all costs. Now, my little sister was not a finance whiz. Unlike my older sister, who is a financial genius, my little sister did not get that gene. And when payday came around, inevitably, she always had an insufficient amount to pay off that payday loan. So she would go back to the payday loan company and say, okay, look, I realize I'm supposed to pay this off, but I need to extend it. And so what they said was, all right, we're going to loan you the $150 that you need to pay off the loan. And when you pay it off in 2 weeks, you're going to need to pay us $250. So now she's paying $150 to repay a $100 loan. And she would keep churning this up, and because she would never have the amount of money that she needed, because it became a self-perpetuating cycle of spinning down around the drain. Eventually, she wound up in bankruptcy as a result of this payday loan fiasco. And it is legal in Missouri to have payday loans, but my goodness, the absolute predatory nature of these loans is ridiculous. Now, I understand the idea that you want to have a safety valve for people who don't have credit. I get that. And I also understand that there is a fairly large amount of risk. But here is what the thing is that really makes these a danger. They collect a check from you when you make this payment. They say, write us a check, post-date it for X date, and then you don't have to come in and pay off your loan. We'll just run the check unless you call us and tell us not to. And of course, the hope is that they will call and tell them not to so that they can write another loan. And then when they're up at $500 or $600 in loans and they can't pay them off, they run the check through, even though the person will request that they not do that. They run the check through, and now the person has a bad check charge. So if they can't pay it off within the 10 days offered by the prosecutor, they have a warrant out for their arrest, and it's a felony amount. This is a bad situation to be in, and the collection tactic is the most predatory one in the industry. It's actually worse than title loans. So if you have a problem of this nature, there has to be some other way for you to get your money than to go to a payday loan. Because if you go to the payday loan and you can't pay it back at the first payday, you are going to at some point be paying double to triple to 3 times to 4 times what you owe on that note. And it becomes a death spiral. It is not something to be taken lightly. So the next thing I want to talk about are title loans. Title loans are just as pernicious. The deal behind a title loan is you have clear title to your car. Now, maybe it's not a 2024 Lincoln, but it's a 2016 Chevy. And you own the title to it free and clear, but now you've hit a problem and you need to have a couple of $100. A lot of the title loan places won't loan you less than $2,600. In fact, TitleMax, which is one of the biggest companies in this area, that has been cited by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau numerous times and fined by the CFPB numerous times, they call them predatory lenders. Here's a press release from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and it says they took action against a web of corporate entities operating under the TMX Finance, broadly known as TitleMax, for violating the financial rights of military families and other consumers in providing auto title loans. The CFPB found that TitleMax violated the Military Lending Act. The CFPB's order ends TitleMax's illegal activities and requires the company to pay $5 million in consumer relief and a $10 million civil money penalty. The CFPB's order stops TitleMax's illegal predatory lending to military families, sometimes even taking steps to hide evidence of its wrongdoing. Our legal action is the CFPB's first against a non-bank lender for providing title loans to military families. In that press release, they go on to say that TitleMax is a repeat offender, that they were fined in 2016 and paid a $9 million penalty then, which is roughly 1% of their net worth. Auto title loans are small dollar loans with expensive charges and short terms of usually 30 days or less. For these loans, borrowers are required to put up their car or truck title for collateral. The nature of these loans causes many borrowers to face unaffordable payments and find they must choose among defaulting, reborrowing, or skipping other financial obligations like rent, food, or medical care. Since the CFPB issued its rulings, the TitleMax people have changed their web page. As you can see here, they have 12, 24, 36, and 48 month car title loans, and the amount of the annual percentage rate is right up there at 35.9, may as well say 36%. So on a $2,610 loan, $2,615 loan, the monthly payment is $256, and you pay $3,150 for a $2,600 in loan. Now, that's a finance charge of $550 or $535, which is a lot more than you would pay at a bank. And of course, the more you go up the number of months, well, the larger the final finance charge is. And so these are not a good place to go to get loans. They basically charge a lot more interest. They are usually limited to 36% APR. But unless you are a military veteran, unless you are a military enlistee or dependent of somebody in the military, that rate doesn't apply to you. And in Georgia, for example, that rate can go up to 300% for the first 3 months, and then it drops down to 150%. Well, by the time you compound all of that, you will never get out of debt. The only way to get out of debt in that situation, again, is to take bankruptcy. Title loans are not an investment. They are not an investment in your future. They're not a short-term fix to a long-term problem. They are a trap. Their corporate motto should be a giant mousetrap, because once they get you, they got you. There was a news report recently out of one of the Georgia stations for a guy who got a title loan. He has been paying on it for 3 years, the monthly fees every month, and it has not touched the principal of the loan. All he has been doing is paying off the title loan by paying the interest. All he's gotten is the interest paid. He hasn't paid any of the principal yet, even though he has certainly tried. That is a terrible situation for that man to be in. And again, his best option probably is to take bankruptcy, because without taking bankruptcy, he's probably going to wind up getting his car repossessed. And by that point, you really have a problem even if you get into bankruptcy. If you have problems of this nature, go to a consumer credit counseling service. There are consumer credit counseling services all over the country, and they specialize in helping people address budgetary problems, credit card issues, and yes, title loan and payday loan problems. You would think that it would destroy the corporate reputation of some place like Title Max to be cited by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But before I told you about that, had you heard that? No, huh? Interesting. The fact is, unless you need this service and do the research, you would never find out how bad a reputation it has with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And you are encouraged to do your own research. Now, if you want to do business with Title Max, I say fine, but I'm certainly not going to dissuade you. But you should also do the research first, look into their history, look into what has happened to some of the people who have taken out loans with these folks, and understand what the consequences are to having one of these loans. Because if you don't pay it back, they have your title. Oh, one other thing you may find interesting. When you go drive down the road the next couple of days, look for a title pawn or a Title Max kind of place. And notice what's always right next to it. A used car shop. That's right. They take it in one place and they sell it in another. And of course, they've made a whole bunch of interest in the interim. It really ought to be against the law. You really ought to write to your state legislators and tell them that this is wrong. This is not something that should be allowed. If somebody from the mafia came and charged the kind of interest that these folks charge, they'd be charged with loan sharking. But not these folks, because they have a corporate presence and a corporate charter, and boy, do they have lobbyists. And those lobbyists keep them sitting pretty. You can change that. You can go to your legislator and say, I want this changed. And you can either do it, or we can vote you out, and we'll get somebody who will do it. That is the way that changes like this have to happen. You have to make them happen. That's what I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments, drop them in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, all of that. And of course, if you have the opportunity today, do a kindness for someone. Maybe loan them $100 if you don't expect to get paid back, so that they don't wind up going to a payday loan company. Or maybe not. That's up to you. Just do a kindness. Open a door for someone. And then come on back down here, meet me at the beach next time. We'll talk about something else fun. I shouldn't have to say this, but you don't seek legal advice from a guy down at the beach. You seek it from a lawyer in a lawyer's office, where there are people running around in suits and secretaries and all kinds of other people. I'm just a YouTuber. I'm a retired attorney at this point. And although I retain my license to practice in the state of Missouri, I am not here dispensing legal advice. I'm just offering general content on the law. So please don't take anything I say here as legal advice, and if you need legal advice, see a lawyer in your jurisdiction. And here are some videos that YouTube thinks you may enjoy.